Okay, let's try this again. First and foremost, please forgive me for this terrible lighting. It's evening, it's dark. I'm recording this video again because I'm a perfectionist and I'm tired. Also, forgive me for looking like a ragamuffin. But anyway, I'm re-recording this video because as I was editing my earlier video, I just felt like crap. And battling with mental health, I have honestly felt like I've been up here. Here I come, Mr. Fairy Universe! To the point of immediately feeling dragged back down to like here. I digress. What up you guys, and welcome back to my channel Illum Reads, or if you are new here, welcome to this very messy channel. My name is Will, and today I want to talk to you about some books that I've read in 2020 so far that has made an impact on my life. Okay, so I had to go back through Goodreads because there were quite a bit of books. I'm only going to try to get through some of the major ones that have really made an impact on my life. Here we go. The first book would have to be Supernova by Marissa Meyer. I was gifted this book last Christmas by a coworker as my Secret Santa. She knew that I had read Renegades in 2018 and I had read Arch Enemies in 2019. I loved both of those, so she gifted me this last Christmas. Supernova has made an impact on my life basically because I am a huge nerd. Ever since I was a child, I have loved superheroes, and the Renegades trilogy is basically all about superheroes. Supernova follows the protagonist slash antagonist Nova as she goes to infiltrate. I can't remember what the superheroes were called. Were they the Renegades? I don't remember. It's been a very long time. I am sorry. I am a failure at booktubing. But Nova goes to infiltrate the superheroes' inner circle because she is acting out of vengeance. Early on within the series, Nova felt very left down after the tragic death of her parents and her sister early in her life, and that has stayed with her through her teen years. So basically she tries to become one of the superheroes even though she is acting as an antagonist to basically take them down from the inside out. Supernova basically brings everything together up to like the final point. What really got to me was the epilogue, which is giving me hopes for a possible fourth installment, maybe a continuation to the series. I don't know, but I'm talking to you, Marissa Meyer. The next book that has made an impact on my life would have to be Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. By now, I am pretty sure that all of you know that I am a huge Cassandra Clare fan. She is one of my top favorite authors of all time. I have read all of her books starting in, I believe, the year was 2011 when I started the Infernal Devices. The Infernal Devices acts as a prequel to her Shadowhunter Chronicles. Chain of Gold, which is part of the Last Hours series, acts as a sequel to that prequel. It's all very confusing. There are a lot of books within the Shadowhunter Chronicles, and maybe one day I'll actually just do a whole booktube video about Cassandra Clare's books. But for right now, Chain of Gold. I read Chain of Gold during the beginning of quarantine in March in the USA. So I would have to say that this book has gotten me through that hardship first and foremost. But what I loved about it the most is how Throughout the entire Shadowhunter Chronicles, Cassandra Clare brings back beloved characters, and it's true for Chain of Gold as well. Even though in Chain of Gold we are meeting some new characters, and Cassandra Clare has stated behind the scenes that these Shadowhunters are facing threats that were never seen before, even though this is told in like the late 1800s, I want to say early 1900s, like that dip right into like the early 1900s, I want to say, if I remember correctly. But yeah, it's still one of their biggest threats yet. The characters in Chain of Gold have to face demons that are okay coming out in like the sunlight. They're not easily beaten. There are just a lot of secrets and baggage that the characters have to carry. Cassandra Clare always puts her characters through the ringer, and it's so interesting on how she resolves those situations. The next book that has made a powerful impact on my life would have to be Gemini by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. Gemini is the second installment within the Illuminae Files series, and honestly, Gemini is my favorite out of the entire trilogy. Even though Gemini is told through different viewpoints of different characters and outside space, it's a sci-fi novel. One character has always remained, and it is this artificial intelligence called Aiden, who kind of acts as a protagonist slash antagonist. There are a lot of like gray areas with Aiden, and it was interesting to see how he acted upon the spaceship. I don't remember what the spaceship is called. It's been a very long time since I read it, but it was very interesting to see how like this artificial intelligence acted to bring about the safety of some of these characters. What Hannah, the main protagonist, had to go through in saving her people's lives and getting them onto a different spaceship because her spaceship is taken over by, I'm going to call them space pirates. They're not really called space pirates, but yeah, the spaceship is taken over and basically they're killing everybody. Hannah reactivates Aiden in order to help them take back the fleet and get them to a different spaceship safely. In Gemini, I just felt like the stakes were raised higher than they were in Illuminae. In Obsidio, everything becomes resolved. However, Obsidio just wasn't my favorite. I felt like in Obsidio, so much more could have like happened, but it didn't. But in Gemini, I just felt more closely attached to the characters and what they had to go through, especially Hannah. The next two books that I'm going to talk about are actually books by some author friends of mine. The first book that I'm going to talk about would have to be The Bones of Who We Are by C.L. Walters. The Bones of Who We Are is the third installment in the Cantos Chronicles by C.L. Walters. It follows the story of Gabe. Within the third installment of the Cantos Chronicles, Gabe struggles a lot with his mental health. He goes around feeling like he's this destructive, no good person. He tries to deal with the death of his former best friend, as well as dealing with adoptive parents. A lot of it deals with Gabe trying to break down these old mental habits that he is basically surrounded with and that he just knows so well. It is him trying to overcome. And what I love so much about Gabe's story is how I could resonate so much to this character, because sometimes you just get so stuck in like that mental state of constantly thinking like, this is all that I am, this is all that there is, I'm no good, I'm only going to lead to destruction, and like there's just no second chance. But if you just take the chance and put in the work, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what I loved about The Bones of Who We Are. And the other book that was written by a friend is To Dance by Stephen McClellan. To Dance impacted my life in such a way that it left me broken but mended all at the same time. It's sort of told in two parts. It is told by the protagonist, Royce. It is sort of told in like journal entries, the beginning part from Royce's point of view, but then something happens in the story. I'm not going to give it away, but the narrative switches over to Lori, Royce's mother. So much of the story is wrapped around faith and healing and overcoming, and it was just such an amazing story that I honestly think that I have to gift this to like some family members and friends, because this is such an important story, especially in the times that we are living in. Even though we go through so many hardships in life, things and trials that just seem to just want to break us and just leave us shattered, there is still mending if you are willing to put in the work. And that is honestly what I got out of To Dance. The next book that has impacted my life would have to be The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I absolutely loved The Poet X because, one, it is told in verse. Also, it is another story told around healing and becoming. The Poet X follows Ziamora. She is a Afro-Latina living with her parents and her brother in New York City. She is at this stage in her life where she wants to break out of the mold that her very religious mother wants to keep her in. She is discovering new things about her body and her hormones and just trying to figure out who she really is. But her overly religious mother is trying to keep her on like a different path, a path where Ziamora feels like she can't make mistakes. In order for Ziamora to feel a little bit of freedom, she turns to poetry and verse, and she begins to keep a sort of like diary of poetic feelings to try to shake off some of that negativity. She begins to realize how good of a writer that she is, and she begins to find love in a certain classmate, and she begins to wonder, because of the way that she was brought up, if indeed these feelings are wrong. Throughout it all, she enters a poetry slam, and her mother finds out, and she feels like she's just letting her mother down. Again, I loved it because it was a tale of becoming and this story about trying to figure out who exactly you are. The next book I absolutely loved reading because it gave me back a little piece of like my early adulthood. I can't really say childhood because I had watched this cartoon in early adulthood, but that book is Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Search, a graphic novel. I have been waiting to read this book for so long, and this year I finally picked it up and I read it and I loved it. The Search centers around the Avatar cast within their universe, and we finally get the answer to what happened to Zuko's mother. If you have watched the cartoon, at the very end, or should I say throughout the entire series almost, everyone begins to question what happened to Zuko and Azula's mother. Even in the cartoon, we never find out. But the writers went back and they gave us the graphic novel, The Search, and we finally figure out what happened and what led up to her disappearance. I loved it. That's all I can say about it. And the last book that has made an impact on my life this year would have to be Percy Jackson, The Last Olympian. For quite some time, I was not a Percy Jackson fan. Early on in my life, I did watch the 2 movies. I didn't mind them, but I also learned that they didn't follow the true story like a lot of movies don't. A lot of movies veer off and do their own thing. But I bought the series quite a while ago. I read the first 2 books. I was not a fan. I put the series down, but then this year I went back and finally finished them. I would have to say that my absolute favorite would have to be the last book, The Last Olympian. It ties everything together. The stakes were absolutely high, and Rick Riordan didn't fail to entertain. Alright, you guys, that is all that I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please talk to me down in the comments. What books have impacted your life this year? Let me know. But I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye.